Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode of this podcast. And if you love this podcast, please give us a rating and review however you listen to us. The more positive rating and reviews that we get, the more that those platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts show this podcast to people who have never listened to it before. Therefore, we can impact more people's lives. And by you giving us a rating and review, it actually pays it forward for us to be found by more people. We grow, podcast grows, more lives are changed, and I would greatly appreciate if you would do that. Today, I'm going to give you 3 keys, 3 ways to stop procrastinating. Now, before we do that, I'm going to flip your mind a little bit on procrastinating and what it is, okay? I want you to just answer this intuitively. Answer it as soon as I ask the question. I don't want you to hold yourself back. I don't want you to think about it. You can say it out loud if you want to, if you're in your car. Do you have a problem with procrastinating? Answer it, yes or no. Do you procrastinate more than you would like to? Do you procrastinate on things that really matter to you? Do you have a problem with procrastinating? Now, I'm not in the car with you. I'm not in the gym with you. I'm not in the shower with you if you're listening to me in the shower. But I would guess the majority of people are going to say, yes, I have a problem. Like one of the things that's holding me back, one of the problems, the thing that's holding me back the most from the life that I want is some form of procrastination. And I'm actually going to tell you that I think that's bullshit. I don't think that that's true. I was talking with my team members, and this was about 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about the ways that people hold themselves back. And one of the things that was said is, this person that I spoke to on the phone, they had a problem with procrastinating. And I said, do you think procrastination was a problem? And one of my team members was like, yeah, definitely procrastination was his problem. And I said, procrastination is not his problem. Procrastination is the symptom of the problem. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we look at somebody who has, some sort of disease, some sort of illness, something like that, that's not the problem. It is the downstream effect of that problem. And so there's a problem, the cause, and then there's the symptom, the effect, this thing that's popping up. So it's like, for instance, I can give you a great example. My fiance, Lauren, she used to have on her arm, she would get eczema, real bad, like crazy bad eczema. There was like right on the other inside of her elbow. And it would be so bad, she couldn't stop itching it. And it was like real bad. And now you would look at that and you would say, okay, the eczema is definitely the problem, but it's not the problem. That was what happened because of the problem. So she starts learning and changing the way she was eating. She actually found out that gluten and soy were the problem. So the problem was the food that she was eating was going into her gut. It was breaking through the blood barrier, and it was actually leaking in her skin was what ended up getting the brunt of it. Like it was the part that was beat up, and you could see, and you would think to yourself, yeah, her eczema was the problem. But her eczema wasn't the problem. It was that she was eating soy and gluten. She didn't realize that she was allergic to soy, and that gluten breaks the blood barrier and allows the soy to get through her gut and into her body. And so, not going too deep in the woods, this isn't a nutrition episode, but you would look at it and think eczema was the problem. Eczema was not the problem. The problem was soy. And then the gluten that obviously messed up her gut as well. That was the problem. The downstream effect of her having it was the eczema on her skin. And so when I talk about procrastination can seem like the problem, the thing that's holding you back, but that's not it. That is the cause of what you're doing. So let me give you an example. Maybe you just started a new business, and your new business, you're all excited about your new business. You want to do well, but you're not taking the action that you need to grow this business. And so I might say to you, like, what's the problem? Why are you not growing your business? And you might say, I'm procrastinating too much. No. That is the eczema. That is the effect of what's happening. That's the symptom of something else. And what could be, I'll give you an example of what I see a lot with business owners, because I coach a lot of business owners, is that the real thing, the reason why they're procrastinating is because there's some sort of fear. And the fear could be, they're not making phone calls to grow their business. Let's say, I'll give you an even better example. I want to put some context to this, right? Let's say that this person has a landscaping business and they're procrastinating, knocking on doors to give out their cards to talk to people, because I know around here, there's always landscaping guys that knock on doors and they're like, hey, if you need landscaping done, here's my card. So maybe the person's like, I'm procrastinating. My landscaping business isn't growing because I'm procrastinating and I'm not knocking on doors. None of that is the issue. The issue, that's the downstream effect of the business not doing them not doing what they're supposed to in the business. The actual problem might be that they're afraid of somebody rejecting them, that they're afraid of somebody saying no to them. They're afraid of somebody saying, get off my fucking property. That's what their actual problem is. And the procrastination is just the downstream effect of that. That's what it truly is. Making sense? And so the growing the business, the procrastination seems like the problem, but the real problem is what's behind all of that, which is the fear. And so if you have procrastination, before I give you the actual 3 steps, the real question I want you to answer is, what is the fear behind your procrastination that's holding you back from taking the action that you need to in order to create the life that you want? What is the actual thing behind the procrastination that's holding you back? What's the fear that's back there? So that's what I got for you on the procrastination. That's something to think about. So let's dive into it. When we talk about procrastination, really what it comes down to is you can still feel that fear. So if we go back to the fear of people saying no to you when you're knocking on doors, you can still knock on someone's door and be filled with fear the entire time. So having a fear does not mean that it's impossible to take the action that you need to in order to grow your business or whatever it is that you need to do that you're procrastinating on. You can be filled with fear and still knock on those doors. The key is discipline. That's what it comes down to. What is the discipline that you need to create? Because the fear will naturally start to subside before you knock on your first door. You're going to have a ton of fear. But when you've knocked on 1,000 doors, that fear has subsided. It might still be there, but it's nowhere near what it used to be, right? And so the key is discipline, to take the action that needs to be taken. And there's 2 parts to discipline. Number 1 is starting, and number 2 is finishing. Number 1 is starting, and number 2 is finishing. Okay? So key number 1 is to not negotiate with your mind. How often are you on the couch and you don't feel like moving and you're like, oh, yeah, I don't feel like doing this. I don't give a damn if you feel like doing it. If you said you were going to do it, you need to get it done. The other day, I feel like I give you guys examples of me in the gym all the time. I always have a mental resistance towards working out. I'm trying to get better at it. I still struggle with it. But the thing that always gets me through it is just doing the movement, just getting my body moving, because motion creates motion. More movement creates more movement. Another thing that motion creates is emotion. And so if you're sitting on the couch and you've been sitting for a while, it makes it, your emotions are down, you're blah. Your emotions are usually going to follow your body a lot of times. And so motion creates emotion. And so if I'm like, you know what, I was supposed to go work out. I don't feel like working out. I don't know about that. It's kind of late in the day. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. All of this stuff. Then my brain will start to go down that route. But if I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go do some jumping jacks in the gym. I'm going to go do some jumping jacks. What I'm going to do? So I go to my garage, I do some jumping jacks because I got a gym out there. Do some jumping jacks. My body starts moving. I start feeling a little bit better. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'll do 15 pull-ups. I do some pull-ups. I do some jumping jacks. And I start to force my body. My emotion starts to go from, yeah, I don't know, I'm lazy. It's not really the day. I'm not really feeling good today. My stomach hurts. The other day when I had this happen, the thing was I actually had a really, really bad stomach ache. I must have eaten something that was bad the night before. And I was like, I don't feel like my body can do this. I'm not really good at it. And then literally I was like, I'm just going to do motion. I'm just going to do motion. It's going to, whatever it is. It was on Saturday. I put on college football. I was watching it on the TV that was in the garage. Watching it, I started moving. I started moving, and my body and my brain started catching up with each other. And they're like, okay, I could do a little more. Okay, I could do a little more. Okay, I do a little more. But the thing was, I told myself I was going to work out on Saturday. I told myself I was going to do it. There was a part of me that was like, don't worry about it, dude. Just go do it tomorrow. Then there was another part of me that was like, get the fuck up. Because you said you were going to do it. And when I say don't negotiate with your mind, it is if you have made a plan to do something, if this is part of what you told yourself you're going to do not negotiate with your mind. Do it because you said you were going to do it. That's what's important. Too many people say they're going to do something to somebody else and to themselves, and they don't follow through. And whenever you do something, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you do not do something that you say you're going to do, you are now starting to become the person who doesn't do what they say they're going to do. And if you continue to keep doing that, your life, you're going to be downstream of that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, you're going to see, you will get the results. Life will always give you the results of the action that you've taken in the future. Or in the past. It will always give you the results of the actions that you've taken in the past. You will in 5 years get the results that come from somebody who decides to skip workouts, someone who decides not to knock on the door, someone who decides not to make the phone call, someone who decides not to read the books. You will become the person that you're going to become based off of the actions that you have taken in the past, which means 5 years from today, that past is right now in this moment. So if you said you were going to do it, do it. Do not negotiate with your mind, because your mind will always try to talk you out of doing anything. That's the first thing. Number 2, finish what you start. Everyone is great at starting. People are always like, yes, I'm going to start a new company. I'm going to start this sticker company on Etsy, and I'm going to become a millionaire, and I'm going to make some pretty designs, and it's going to be so much fun. And it's going to be great. There's going to be stuff like, hey, heart, love everybody, heart. Everyone's going to have it on their bumper stickers in the back of their car, and they're all excited, and they're good at starting, and then they're just terrible at finishing. Become somebody that is really good at finishing whatever you start, no matter what it is. I'll give you an example. You decide to start cooking. Guess what you're going to need to do? You're going to need to wash all those pots and pans. Don't leave them for tomorrow. Get them done today. Wash them. Finish the act of cooking. Finish the act of eating. Even if you just take a Hot Pocket, I hope you're not eating Hot Pockets. Take a Hot Pocket, you throw it on a plate, you put it inside the microwave, you eat it. You got to do something with that plate. You could put it in the dishwasher. Couldn't you? You could wash it. Couldn't you? Or instead of doing that, you could leave it inside of the sink. Just be the person that gets better at finishing things. When you get out of bed, you wake up, finish the act of sleeping and make your bed. When you do your laundry, I'm preaching the choir on this, I'm preaching to myself. I always throw stuff inside of the dryer. Forget about that shit for like a week, right? When you throw stuff in the dryer, this thing that I'm working on personally, when I throw some stuff in the washing machine, when I throw some stuff in the dryer, finish the act of laundry. It's the little teeny tiny things. If you decide, hey, I'm going to try on some clothes for tonight and going out, and you try on outfit 1, you try on outfit 2, 3, 4, 5, and you look back on your bed, do you have a bunch of clothes that are sitting on your bed before you leave? Take 2 minutes, and become the type of person that finishes the act of trying on clothes. You take all of those clothes you decided not to wear and put them inside of your closet on a hanger. Put them away. It's just what you should do. Become better at finishing. Finish what you start. Make breakfast, you eat it, you wash it, you put it away. Be done with it. If you don't have discipline, it's because you've trained yourself not to have discipline. So if you want to train yourself to have more discipline, train yourself to be the type of person who finishes what they start. And the way that you train yourself to be the type of person who finishes what they start is to start finishing things that you start. And you will start to become that person. And over time, you fast forward 60 days, 90 days, 365 days, you are the type of person that finishes what they start. Okay? Number 3, third tip, do more than you said that you would. Do more than you said that you would. I remember this story, and you might have heard this story before, but I'll remember this probably till the day I die. I was at Gold's Gym. I remember where I was in Austin. I was at the Gold's Gym that was on the corner of 35 and what is that road? For those of you guys that are in Austin, William Cannon, that's what it is. William Cannon and 35 when I lived down there. I remember being at the gym and I was there. I was doing a workout and I was doing 10 minutes on the treadmill to get my body warmed up, to get my heart pumping and everything. I was at, a 10% incline and my goal is to do 10 minutes. I remember I got to the 9-minute and 50-second mark and I was about to hit the stop button. And it was like this light bulb popped up in my head and I was like, oh, hold on. I said I was going to do 10 minutes and I'm about to stop at 9 minutes and 50 seconds. And if I stop, nobody on earth but me will ever know that I stopped 10 seconds short. But you know who will know? Me. And if I'm coming up 10 seconds short on this, the way I do one thing is the way I do everything. I'm probably coming up short in all areas of my life. A little bit in my relationship, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. And so if I want to be a type of person who does well and finishes things, what if I'm not just the type of person that finishes things, but goes a little bit extra? I was about to be the person, and James Clear says it, every action that you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. If I stop a little bit short, I am voting for being the type of person who comes up a little bit short on anything that they do. So I was like, I got to go a little bit further. I'll go for 10 minutes and 30 seconds. It was only an extra 40 seconds. But you see how you start to reprogram yourself as to who you are? If you say you're going to do 1 mile, do 1.1 miles, do 10% more. If you say you're going to do 10 reps, do 11, do 12. See what you could do. If you say you're going to make 50 phone calls, make 52. Just do a little bit more than you say you're going to do. And if you do this, go back to that quote, every action that you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. If you have action over and over and over again, and the majority of them are over and above what you said you were going to do, you are going to start to build yourself into the type of person that goes a little bit above on every single thing that you do. Same way that when you finish something, you start something and you finish it, you are voting for the type of person you wish to become. And so you have to realize if you want to get past procrastination, ultimately what you're doing is you're training your mind to start and to finish and to not negotiate with your mind and to get things done. This won't happen right away. It's not going to be a complete reprogramming, but I promise you, I've been working on myself for 16, 17 years now. I am not the same person that I was back then because it's these little teeny tiny actions, these consistent things that I try to do all of the time. And I'm not perfect in any sort of way of doing that. I fuck things up all of the time. I hate when people are like, Rob has to have his entire life figured out. He's got to have it together. No, guys, I'm just bumping into shit in the dark is the way I feel like I'm doing in life. But I at least have a little bit more light than I used to, and I'm bumping into less walls than I used to, right? You have to decide, number one, you have to figure out what fear is behind my procrastination. And then you have to go through these 3 steps. Number 1, don't negotiate with your mind. Number 2, finish what you start. And number 3, don't just finish what you start getting better at doing more than you said you were going to do. And if you do that, ultimately, procrastination is not going to be a problem for you in a year, 2 years, 3 years, but it just takes consistent action of you doing what you need to do. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it. Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. If you're at the gym and you go a little bit further, you do some extra reps, you lift more, whatever it is, tag me in. I want to see what you guys are doing out there. I always look through all of my Instagram messages. I'm not able to respond to everybody because I get a ton of messages, but I promise you, I am seeing everything that you guys are sending in. So with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today, we're going to be diving into how to develop more discipline within yourself so you can take the action that you want to take to create the life that you want. Let's dive in. And the first question that I always think for anything is why. So you clicked on this episode that is titled something along the lines of how to have more discipline. And you think to yourself, I should listen to that. I think I could use a little bit more discipline. Why do you want to be more disciplined? What is it that you think about when you think about being more disciplined? Is it that I want to be more disciplined in making 100 phone calls in my sales job? I want to be more disciplined to eating the right food. I want to be more disciplined to turning off my phone when I come home so that therefore I can have family time. I want to be more disciplined to go to the gym 5 times a week. I want to be more disciplined to get up when my alarm clock goes off. I want to be more disciplined to go to bed when I should go to bed so I can wake up earlier. Why do you want to develop more discipline? What do you think would change in your life if you started to become more disciplined? You probably think to yourself, my life would be better. I would probably make more money. I would probably be in better shape. I would probably be happier. My children would be happier. So you can see that discipline is a positive thing because the word discipline can have a negative connotation because we think to ourselves like if somebody doesn't do something, your child doesn't do something, you discipline them, or your dog doesn't do what it's supposed to do, you discipline it. So we think discipline has this negative kind of feeling behind it. But discipline is actually one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And so today we're going to talk about how to be more disciplined. And I want you to understand this before we dive in, is that discipline is like a muscle. It is a habit that you build within yourself. Nobody is born disciplined. There's no very disciplined 2-year-old. And they're just like, I'm going to do this thing. Like there's no disciplined person that's born into this world. And the reason why I can say this is because I feel like now I am a very disciplined person, but I was extremely undisciplined and I was a lazy piece of shit for a long time. And then I developed a why behind it. Like I saw where my life was. I saw where my life was going if I continued down the same path that I was already on. And then I thought to myself, well, I want to go down a different path. I want a different life path. I want something to be different than that. So I'm going to need to develop some discipline. I'm going to need to get better at taking action, to doing what needs to be done, and sometimes doing what I don't want to do for the greater good of myself and for my life. And so I developed it over time. And the interesting thing about discipline is that discipline, you don't have to have it for the easy things. You don't need any discipline at all to do the things that are easy. To sleep in, you don't need discipline for that. To eat something that's really tasty but not good for you, you don't need discipline for that. To not go to the gym, you don't need discipline for that. To decide to stay home and not grow your business, you don't need discipline for that. To not make cold calls, you don't need discipline for that. Ultimately, you need discipline to do the things that are actually good for you. That are good for you, that are good for the people around you, that are good for your mind, your body, your soul. You need discipline to do those things. You need discipline to sit down and meditate for 10 minutes, right? Because there's so many other things you could make excuses for. But you know that when you sit down for 10 minutes and you meditate with nothing else, that you end up being a more calm, better version of yourself around your children, around your employees. You need discipline to do the good things. You need discipline to do the things that are harder, right? You don't need discipline for the easy things. You need discipline for the hard things. But these are the things that you know should be done. You need it. And the way that I want to frame your mindset and to change your mindset around discipline is that when we hear the word discipline, I think it's kind of a hard thing and it feels kind of like constraining, right? Like for me, I always think very visually. So when I think of like discipline, I think of almost like a normal connotation that it has kind of in society is discipline is kind of like a straitjacket. Like you can't do anything else. You have to do this. You have to be mean to yourself. You have to kind of white knuckle your way into discipline. No, not really. That's the way that we normally think about it. But I just shared with you that you need discipline to do the things that are good for you. And so in a sense, I want to reframe your mindset around discipline and realize that discipline is a form of self-love. Discipline is a form of self-love because you are doing what you know is good for you in the long run. You're focusing on something in the future. It's like planting a seed. You know that you're not immediately going to get the tree, but you know that if you plant a seed now, in 5 years, you'll be able to sit under the shade of that tree and protect yourself from the sun, right? So you're focusing on delayed gratification. When you work out, you don't immediately see the results. When you eat healthy, you don't immediately see the results. You don't see immediate results most of the time when you have to do something that requires discipline because you're focusing on delayed gratification versus instant gratification. We live in a society where we get everything immediately nowadays. We immediately get almost everything that we want. We get an answer when we want to figure something out. We get food delivered to our house. We get someone to come pick us up and drive us somewhere if we want to use Uber. And so we really are so used to instant gratification. But for our lives and the things that make our lives better, it's almost always delayed gratification is necessary. You put in the work now, and eventually you get the fruits of your labor. Everything works its way out in time. You know, now that I'm slowly each year getting closer and closer to 40, I am now starting to realize that everything works its way out in time. If you take good actions for yourself consistently, time will be your best friend. If you take good actions for yourself and you fast forward 10 years from today, time is your best friend. You're going to live longer. You're probably going to be happier. You're going to be healthier. You're going to be wealthier. You're going to have a greater life. If you take bad actions for yourself, time is your worst enemy. It will catch up. And as I start getting to the age of almost at 40, I look at people, I can see people on Facebook and Instagram that I grew up with, that I went to elementary school, high school, middle school with, and I can see now people, just by looking at them and go, yeah, that person looks really good. They probably took care of themselves for the past 20 something years since I last saw them. And I can see other people and go, Yeah, it doesn't look like they took care of themselves. Time catches up. We like to act like it doesn't. We like to prepare. We like to, God, I can't even say pretend. We like to pretend like it's not going to catch up to us. It's fucking catching up at some point in time. Time is either your best friend or it's your worst enemy. So discipline, when you think about it, is not about being perfect. It's not about the straitjacket. It's a form of like, you know what? I am going to eat healthier to take care of my body because I want to live longer, because I do want to have more energy, because I want to be able to play with my grandchildren, right? So it's not about being perfect or about being this like badass productivity machine, you know, like the overly aggressively masculine fucking go out and get it done, bro. Like it's not about being that. It's about going, you know what? I'm going to show up for myself. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about beating myself up when I'm not perfect. It's about winning that battle more than losing. So I'm going to have more wins in the win column than in the losses column. Yeah, I'm going to try to do the best that I possibly can. I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to be more disciplined. And so let me give you some ways to help you be a little bit more disciplined and to start to develop the muscle. The same way that, you know, if you don't go to the gym, but you decide that you want to start going to the gym, you're going to have some weak muscles. That's okay. But as you lift, you're going to be sore for a couple of days the first time that you lift heavy. But you'll eventually start to get there. You'll eventually start to get better. And you'll eventually start to have this muscle grow. And so I'm going to give you a couple tips just to kind of help you get a little bit better with your discipline. The first thing, that's a very simple thing to help you get better with your discipline, is to challenge yourself to finish everything that you start. You know, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if the way you do small things is also the way you do big things. And so I always recommend try to do the little things the best that you possibly can. Because eventually you're building that muscle of, this is just who I am. This is how I show up. So if I get used to finishing the small things, I'll get used to finishing the big things. So for instance, like doing the dishes, right? You end up going and eating some food. You end up taking that dish and just cleaning it. Finish the act of eating your food, which means finishing the dish. Clean it by hand, put it inside the dishwasher, whatever you need to do. Sleeping. Finish the act of sleeping. Make the bed. It's these little things that impact the big things. When you can start to develop the feeling of finishing what you start, because all too often, what I find with people is that people are really good at starting things. Most people have no problem starting things. They'll start it and they'll excite about it. The problem that most people have is finishing things. The follow through is where most people usually fall off in some sort of way. So if you can get with the little things and you can get good at finishing those things, you get really good at the big things as well. Just finish what you start. Don't allow yourself to stop something early. That stopping early is a habit too. Following through is a habit. Stopping too early and not following through is probably not the habit that you want to develop within yourself. And that muscle might be strong. The giving up early muscle might be strong. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make the following through muscle stronger now. Okay? So that's the first thing. Second thing that I would recommend to help you be better at discipline is to plan ahead. And plan ahead not as a form of, I got to plan ahead to get all this shit done and make sure I'm as efficient as possible. No, plan ahead to make it easier on yourself. You know, plan your workouts ahead so that when you walk into the gym, you don't have to think as much. You just literally take action on what it is that you need to do. So plan ahead in some sort of way. If you're trying to eat healthier, plan ahead your meal plans. Plan ahead in some sort of way to look into the future versus being like, oh my gosh, here I am. I'm at the gym. What should I do? Oh, now I got to think about it. Now I got to find something. Oh, do I want to do legs today? Do I want, whatever it is. Try to figure out a way to plan ahead for the sole reason to make it easier on yourself to take the action that you need to, right? I always think to myself, how can I make it easier? When I used to do one-on-one coaching and my clients would always say, okay, I want to do this week. I would always say, how can you make it easier on yourself? Let's try to figure out the easiest way to do it. Let's try to figure out the path of least resistance to get you to the destination that you want. So that's the second thing, is to try to plan ahead. The third thing is to design your environment to make it easier, once again, for you to take action that you need to, right? So designing your environment. If you want to wake up when the alarm clock goes off, well, go ahead and take your phone and put it on the other side of the room. That's designing your environment. There's also an alarm clock I saw the other day that as soon as your alarm goes off, it's got wheels on it. It'll fall off of the counter or off of the side table. It'll roll around and you actually have to go and pick it up and turn it off as it's rolling around and running all over the place. Well, that's a way to design your environment to make sure that you get out of bed whenever the alarm goes off. Design your environment. How can you make it easier? How can you remove temptation? Can you remove the processed food from your house if you're trying to eat healthier? Can you remove the sugar if you're somebody who loves sugar like me? I love sugar, right? I don't have anything that's processed inside of my house or any sugar that's inside of my house. If you want to stop drinking, remove all of the alcohol. And then as far as the environment goes, can you also just try not to get around people who will challenge your discipline? If you're trying not to drink, well, then it's probably good to maybe distance yourself, at least for a little while, from your friends that love to party, and they are the ones that will always try to push it on you if you have that. Or if you have a friend that doesn't eat as healthy and you want to start eating healthier for the next 30 days, maybe distance yourself a little bit from them. So how can you design your external environment to make it easier on yourself to take the action that you need to? That's number 3. Number 4, focus on progress, not perfection. You will not be perfect. And when you mess up, make adjustments. When you mess up, don't be an asshole to yourself. Because all too often I see people that will mess up in some sort of way. They do, like for instance, they'll work out, they'll be on their meal plan, they'll do everything they need to do, they'll be reading, they'll be doing the morning routine for 17 days. And then they screw up one day. And then they get into self-pity and guilt and shame and beating themselves up, and they don't get back on track because of all the shame and the guilt and everything. No, you're going to mess up. When you mess up, make adjustments. What made you mess up? How can you avoid it next time? Stop judging yourself so much. You're a human, not a robot. You're not going to do everything perfectly. So focus on your progress, not your perfection. And so if you did 17 days of doing something well and you screwed up one day, and the only thing that you're focusing on is the one day where you screwed up, why not look at the progress that you made and look at the 17 days where you actually did well? And so that's number 4, is to focus on progress, not perfection. And then the 5th one, please reward yourself. You are more likely to show up tomorrow if you're rewarding yourself for all the little things that you do. So one of the things I recommend, like for some reason, this episode I've been talking a lot about like meal prep and to be working out and stuff, right? Is to reward yourself. Please, if you're eating really healthy, have one cheat meal a week. Like for me, I eat really healthy, but I have one cheat meal a week where I'm allowed to go and eat pizza because I freaking love it. And I eat so much of it and I love it so much that I'm like, all right, I'm good for the rest of the week. And then I look forward to the cheat meal on Saturday nights where I'm like, I can't wait for Saturday night when I can have that cheat meal. And I love all the stuff that I eat. Like eating healthy can actually be really delicious too. It's not like you only eat, piece of lettuce or anything like that. So reward yourself in some sort of way. If you eat really well, have a cheat meal. If you make 100 calls and you get 100 calls done, have a piece of chocolate. Whatever it does to make your brain, it's actually something, and I wrote about it in my book. You can get my book if you want to. It's called Level Up. But the entire last chapter 12, is on your dopamine reward systems. And developing a dopamine reward system to celebrate yourself and to get your brain to actually start to fall in love with the process of doing the things that you want to have done and you want to be done. And so you actually develop a dopamine reward system so that you are more motivated to do it again. And so once again, it's in my book, Level Up is what it's called. It's available everywhere. It's chapter 12. You can read it. And I've also done episodes before about dopamine reward systems. But really, it's about rewarding yourself so that you want to show up and take the same action again tomorrow. Because all too often, what do? We go to the gym, and then instead of rewarding ourselves for going to the gym, then we look at ourselves in the mirror and you're like, you could have worked out harder. Well, you should have shown up earlier so that you could work out longer. You still look fat. You still don't look good. And then instead of actually rewarding yourself and celebrating yourself and being proud of yourself, you're still an asshole to yourself, right? I hear this all the time from people. So how can you reward yourself? How can you celebrate yourself? How can you get yourself to actually start to love the process of being more disciplined and taking the action that you need to? So ultimately, discipline is not something that is struggling and white knuckling and forcing yourself to do something. Discipline is another act of self-love because you need to develop discipline to do the things that are ultimately going to be the best for you in your life. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way that we grow is from you guys actually sharing this podcast. And ultimately, my only goal of this podcast is to help more people because I think more people need to work on themselves in this world. And the world would be better if more people worked on themselves. So if you would help us by just sharing this podcast, more people will be able to find it who have never heard of it before. And hopefully we can continue to keep helping people and changing the world in our own little space of the world. So if you do that, I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to leave the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast this episode. Today, we're going to be talking about some ancient Japanese technique to help you improve yourself, push yourself, and grow yourself. Now, what we're going to be talking about is a practice that you could do once a year if it's really, really big. You could do once a quarter, but I recommend just doing something like this once a month, just once every 30 days, and see what happens in your life. It will drastically improve your life. And what it's called is the Misogi Challenge. And Misogi is actually two words in Japanese, and hopefully I don't mess this up. If anyone speaks Japanese, I probably will. It's Mizu, which stands for water, and Sogi, which stands for to purify or purification. And now the Misogi is usually a process that involves cold water for purification, but this entire episode will not be just about cold water. But if you've been listening to the podcast long enough, you know that I love the benefits of having really cold water and using that to push yourself past not just your physical capacity, but more than anything else, your mental capacity. And this episode will be geared towards how to use your willpower to do something that's extremely hard and how to do one thing, just one thing that will massively grow you as a person. Like, just think about this for a second. All too often, we think the process of change is gradual, like, I'm slowly going to I'm improving myself every single day. And that can happen, sure, but there's also a chance that something can happen that just drastically changes you in just one go. And the idea behind this is to do something that is so hard that all of the rest of the things in your life that seem quote unquote hard don't seem like such a big deal. And the more that we can push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, the more that we grow our willpower, the more that we get comfortable finding our edge and pushing past it, and finding our edge and pushing past it, the less we focus on all of the little shit that really doesn't matter. You know, the people who think of the world is so bad and they're complaining the most in the world, the people that are, and this is a general statement, I understand this, but the people who are complaining the most right now are the people who are not wanting to do the hard things. They want things done for them. Instead of actually going out and changing the world and changing themselves, they'd rather just sit behind their keyboard or move their thumbs around on their iPhone a little bit and complain about how the world is not what they want it to be versus actually getting their ass up and doing something about it. Now, if you listen to this podcast, you know that you need to change. You know that you need to change. So you're not probably one of those people that just wants to sit behind a keyboard and just blame everybody else and blame the government and blame your parents and blame all those people. You know that in order to make massive change in the world, in order to make massive change in your life, that you are the one that needs to make massive change. And so the idea of Misogi is instead of taking a month or this year or this quarter to gradually change yourself, how can you just have one big, massive event that changes you? And the original Misogi, the way that it worked, just to kind of give you an idea before I kind of give you what tweaks have been made by other people to use this idea, the original Misogi, it could be a few days long. Fast for a few days, don't eat any food, be completely away from your phone, go out into nature. You could do some meditation or prayer or whatever it is. And then the Misogi was you would go to cold water. You go to a river or you would go to a waterfall where the water is way colder than what you are comfortable with and submerging yourself and staying in there as long as you can without injuring yourself. So this is is it a physical thing? Yeah, but even more than physical, this can be a mental, a physical, and a spiritual practice for your purification. Because the only problems that exist in the world are the problems that you're Let me say this again. The only problems that exist in your life are the problems that you think are there, the problems that you're creating. We create all of our problems. And so if we can start to become aware of that, and we can have this big purification process once a month, once a year, once a quarter, I recommend once a month, how can we use this idea of having something massively change us in one go? And it can be cold water. We can talk about that, and we will talk about that. But I'm also going to give you some other examples of things that you could do that could be extremely challenging and be a mental, physical, and spiritual purification process for you. So, when you look at cold water, there's so many benefits to cold water. I always talk about the inner bitch. The inner bitch is that voice that's in your head that says, don't wake up, don't work out, eat that cookie instead of eating something healthy. And the thing that's holding you back more than anything else in this world is that inner bitch. It's not anyone else in the world. It's not anything else in the world. It is that voice that is inside your head. And that voice is the thing that's always pushing up against you when you're trying to use your willpower. And when you jump into cold water, like very cold water, 35, 45, 40 degree water, it's going to test your willpower. And willpower, the beautiful thing about it is something that can grow. You're not just born with willpower. You're not built with willpower. But how can we bring this idea of doing, a 2 or 3 day fast with prayer and with meditation and with really cold water and bring this mental, physical, and spiritual practice into our lives? Because some of you guys don't have 3 days to fast and to just drink water and to go on this journey. But we could do it in one day. We could do it over the course of hours, half of a day, an entire day, whatever it is. How can we develop a cadence of misogi? And we can use water and we can use other hard things. But the idea is to do something, once again, last time I'll say it, so hard that it changes you in one day. How can we do something that is so hard for us that it changes us in one day? Not the gradual process of, I'm bettering myself. I'm trying to make myself, I'm slowly getting rid of all of my problems. No, what if it was just boom, one moment we did something and it changed us? Because there's been many things that have happened in your life, good and bad, that have been one thing that happened and that one thing completely changed your life. So why can't we create the one thing that completely changes who you are? And so what do you need to do to feel like a changed person after it? And once again, I'll give you some examples. You can try these. You could come up with your own ideas, and I hope you do come up with your own ideas. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, but I will say this before I give you the examples, just a little caveat. I don't recommend any of these to you because I don't know you. I don't know your skill set. I don't know your mindset. I don't know your body. But you can take all of them and start to think of what your own could be. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One of them could be like a really intense hike. And I don't mean like you go to Sedona and find the most beautiful, easy one that you could do, and you take some selfies and you post them on Instagram and you bring your nice little water bottle and you're like, ooh, it's kind of hot. Let me put on some sunblock, and it's like a little hike. Because you could do a little hike in Sedona. I've been there many times. But you can also do some really, really challenging hikes, like trying to get to the top of like Thunder Mountain, which is the huge mountain that's in the middle of Sedona. That is something that takes hours, and it will test your willpower, and you will want to give up over and over and over again. That's the point. You want to give up. You don't want to do it. You want to give up. You don't want to do it. You want to give up. You don't want to do it. You're going to give yourself all of the excuses, but you fight through it, and you try to find another version of yourself on the other side. It is something, though, that isn't just like, oh, this is a little bit of a challenge. It's something that is almost beyond your capacity. Now, when I say this is the reason why I gave a caveat. I don't know your hiking abilities. I don't know your climbing abilities. I don't want you to put yourself into danger and then be like, oh, I broke my leg because the podcaster said that I needed to go on a hike in Sedona. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is you know your capacity. You know your abilities. You know what your heart can do and what you can't do. And, there's some people that are listening that are super fit and you've been on crazy long, intense hikes. Well, then you could do something different. Maybe what you could do, and I've heard people doing this before, is going to the Grand Canyon and hiking all the way down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and then hiking all the way back up in one day. I've heard of people that decided to use Misogi and climb Mount Everest. Do I recommend that? You can if you want to. I watched a documentary on Mount Everest 2 nights ago, and they were talking about how there's hundreds of bodies that are still up there because they can't remove them. So there is that aspect of it where I'm not going to be like, hey, everybody here listening needs to go and hike Mount Everest. What I'm saying is find your capacity and push past it. So maybe a really long, intense hike, a day-long hike, maybe a couple day-long hike that is just really intense for you, where you want to give up, but you don't give up on yourself, is what you need. That's a pretty good example of something you could do. What's another good, really good example? Sweat lodges is a really good example. Once again, I don't recommend any of these, but you have to know yourself. A sweat lodge is a really great example. It's not like hopping into a sauna. A sweat lodge is usually with somebody who is a shaman or someone who is a facilitator. They will take you through this hours-long journey of purifying in sweat and water, and purifying in sweat and water, meditation and prayer and all of these things to find what your capacity is and push past it. Because for me, when I go into the sauna, it's about 20 minutes. But hours long? Nope, never done that before. I've never gone for 20 minutes and then taken 5 minutes off, and 20 minutes and 5 minutes off, 20 minutes and 5 minutes off, 5 or 6 times in a row. But that would be a pretty good example of like finding your capacity and what you can and can't do. Maybe it has to do with doing some psychedelics. I don't recommend psychedelics to anybody. I have done them many times. And this is one of the reasons why I think psychedelics actually change people so much, is because it is a version of Misogi. It is a extremely intense thing that can happen over 6 hours. And you can leave that a changed person. And so there's examples of psychedelic journeys that you could go on. And they could be, breath work that you could do. Breath work over a couple hours. So there's breath work, and there's Wachuma, and there's MDMA, there's mushrooms, there's ayahuasca, there's ibogaine, which is a 12-hour up to 24-hour journey that you can go on. There's all of these different things where you can do it, and it is an extremely intense event where you're going to find the other side of you, and all of your demons that are inside are going to come up. All of your demons that are holding you back, that are ruining your relationships, that are keeping you from being the best version of yourself. All of those things. The point of this is to come in contact with the quote unquote demons. I don't mean like physical, spiritual demons that are trying to take over your body. I mean the demons inside of you, the devil on your shoulder and the angel on one shoulder. All the devils that are on your shoulder that are telling you to sleep in. All of them that are saying, no, don't do that. Don't work out. Don't eat that healthy stuff. Take a break. Don't meditate. You don't have time for this. For all of those to bubble to the surface so that we could come in contact with them and say, fuck you. I'm going to keep going anyways, even though you're telling me to quit, and push past it. Another example could be going on a run that is way beyond your capacity. And what I mean by like way beyond your capacity is like maybe you've never run before. But you're like, you know what? Today I'm going to go for 20 miles. That's going to bring up some stuff inside of you. That's going to bring up your doubter. That's going to bring up the person that doesn't want to do it. That's going to bring up all of the demons that you have inside of you that you want to get rid of. I had this happen one time where I had a client, and from the very beginning, she was a successful woman. She worked with me one-on-one for a really long time. And in the very first month of us working together, you could tell she was what I like to call fat and happy. She wasn't physically fat, but fat and happy just basically means like, I'm comfortable. Life is okay. I can pay my bills. She made a few $100,000s a year, so she's good. Like she can pay her bills. She could take some trips. She has a nice car. She does some stuff that's some people are not able to do, but she wanted to find another level of herself. And I said, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go on a run, and I want you to go on a run until you can't do anymore. And then I want you to go further, and I want you to go further, and I want you to go further. I want you to go to the point where you can feel your inner bitch come up. You start crying, you start sweating, you start getting angry, where you're like, fuck this, fuck Rob, fuck everybody I've ever known. And all of that comes out, and it's like, I'm going to do it anyways. And you keep going. And what I told her about was this idea of the law of 40%. And the law of 40% is something I've heard David Goggins talk about. David Goggins says, 250-mile runs over the course of 48 hours and just insane things. And what he talks about the law of 40% is that most of us will, when we get to 40% of our capacity, we think we're at 100% of our capacity. And our brain basically has this safety switch inside of it that says, hey, you're approaching all that you can do. You need to stop. You need to stop. You need to stop. And it's a safety mechanism that our brain has to basically keep our body safe. Right? This is why I'm saying to you, I don't recommend any of this, because I don't know your body. I don't know you. And I want to make sure that you're safe, but I also want to make sure that you continue to push yourself and continue to find the capacity of your willpower and to grow that willpower. And he says when you feel like you're at like your last bit, this is a guy who's run 250 miles many times. He says when you feel like you have nothing left in your body, you're only at 40% of your capacity. And if you think about that, how many times do we actually get to feeling like we have nothing left in the tank? Very rarely. And if nothing left in the tank and what that feels like is only 40% of your capacity, what could happen if we decide to push past that? What could we find on the other side of that version of ourselves that is on the other side of the 40%? So I gave this idea to her and I said, you could go for a run. You could tell yourself you're going to go for 5 miles, for 10 miles, 15, 20, whatever it is. I don't really care the distance. What I care about is meeting that version of you that's holding yourself back, meeting that voice inside of your head, meeting that anger that is bubbling under the surface all the time of your entire life that might be from your childhood and you've been carrying it with you for years and years and years and years and years. And I was like, I want you to find it. I want you to push past it. And I want you to go further than you think is even possible. And she was really hesitant. She's like, okay, I'll do it. Because she was just tired of the fat and happy feeling. So what happened? She ended up doing it. Next week we have a call. And she's like, that was the most amazing thing I've ever done. She's like, I don't know how long I was going, but I feel like I was running for hours. And I got to the point where I'm sweating. I'm pissed off at you. I'm pissed off at myself. I'm pissed off at the world. I'm angry and I'm crying at the same time. And all of it just bubbles to the surface. And I'm like, this, in her head, she's like, this is what he said was going to happen. I've got to push past it. And she found this version of herself where she felt like she was at her capacity and she ran for another hour and a half after. And she just kept going and her body kept going. And she realized that there was a whole other side of her that she had never tapped into. This animalistic side of her that was just like, I'm going to change. I'm going to do this. There is no questioning. There is no thinking. There is no something might be wrong. Was she sore for a few days? She was. But I'm telling you this, it was like a switch. It was a different person on all of the rest of our phone calls after that because she was able to go through, and I didn't know this was misogi at the time, but she was able to go through this misogi. And a lot of times we are capable of so much, but we settle for safe because we want to be safe. That's the animalistic part of us that wants to be safe and wants to be taken care of. But there's another version of ourselves that we can meet on the other side of pushing past that safe. And something like this can really open you up to believing more in yourself because you did something that was so ridiculously hard and you pushed past it. And now you're like, if I can do that, I can make 50 cold calls. I can knock on 35 doors today. And what happens is the things that, and I said this at the beginning of the podcast episode, the things that seem quote unquote hard, you realize were never hard in the first place. Mentally in your mind, you were making them feel like they were hard, but they were never actually hard. And so the things that were quote unquote hard before the misogi are easy after. If I can do that thing, I can definitely do these stupid things. If I can do that thing, I can definitely do this. If I can push myself past and believe in myself and all of that, I can definitely do these things that I do on a daily basis. And the things that seem quote unquote hard, you realize are really not a big deal. You're making a mountain out of an anthill. So the idea is you can do this thing that at this moment, it can change you. You don't know if you can do it. It has to challenge you. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So if you're going, like I said, on a nice little hike with a little bit of a slight incline and all that stuff, it's not going to change you. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. You have to meet you on the other end of it. You have to find another version of yourself. You have to mentally and physically push past something that was way harder and way past the capacity of what you thought was possible for you. You have to get past what you think is possible. And on the other side of that is a version of you that you've never met before that's been freaking waiting for you to come and meet it. That's what I want you to find. That's the point of this purification process, is to purify yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and meet the other version of you that is out there. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Also, if you love this podcast, I do also have an Instagram for this podcast where if you want some clips from it, go to The Mindset Mentor Podcast on Instagram. Once again, The Mindset Mentor Podcast. And I'm going to leave it the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to talk to you about how not getting what you want most of the time ends up being a blessing in disguise. So I'm going to teach you how to reframe your mindset to stop worrying so much, to trust a little bit more, and to be happier. Today, we're going to be talking about why sometimes when you don't get what you want, it ends up being a blessing in disguise. Sometimes the universe does you a favor by not giving you exactly what it is that you wanted. And today I'm going to offer you a perspective. And I'm not going to say that this is factual. I'm not the type of person to say, hey, I'm stand on top of a soapbox and say, hey, this is absolute truth. You should believe this. But I just want you to just take the next 15 minutes with me and just play with this idea that I'm about to give you and just see how it lands. If you want to choose to believe it or kind of believe in it, great. If you want to just throw it to the wayside, no big deal. I just want to kind of offer you a different perspective and see if I can change your mind a little bit on the way that the world works. For me, I believe that I am part of this massive greater plan that I don't know and I don't understand. Now, you guys could call it God, you could call it universe, you could call it life, something I believe is out there. There's no religion attached to it for me, but it's a common experience that we as humans can get really frustrated or mad when something doesn't go our way, when we don't get what we wanted. Life does not go as we expected it to happen. We all have hopes and dreams and desires. If you listen to this podcast, you do have some sort of hopes and dreams and desires, and you do want to improve yourself and you do want to get better. And it can be really hard when we have a plan and then it goes to shit and it doesn't go the way that we want, right? And it's like that phrase, whatever it was, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's something along the lines of like, we make plans and God laughs, right? It can be hard when life doesn't go the way that we want. We wanted it to go this way. But I don't know about you guys, I didn't create the universe and I'm definitely not smart enough to know how the whole thing works. And so I'm not smart enough to be like, hey, it should have gone this way. Do I have ways that I wish things would have happened? Sure. But sometimes it's really worth taking a step back and considering that there have been many times in your life where you didn't get what you wanted and you fast forward 5 years or 10 years and go, oh my God, I'm so glad that I didn't get what I wanted. Because had I gotten what I wanted, I would be in a completely different life, completely different circumstance. And so really it turns into be a blessing in disguise a lot of times. In the universe or whatever it is this vast, incredibly complex system that operates on its own principles, its own laws. And let's be real, none of us down here are smart enough to understand it. It is unpredictable, and we really just are trying our best. We're just holding on down here, right? And many people believe that there's a greater purpose and plan, but they still have a whole lot of trouble whenever they're sitting around and things don't go the way that they wanted them to. When we don't get what we want, we feel frustrated, we feel angry, we can cuss at the sky, and we might wonder why the universe is not giving us the thing that we wanted, that we've been working towards, that we think that we deserve. See, you start to think about that when you start to see that maybe it is a little bit crazy. We see other people that are achieving things that we wanted, and it seems, man, they grew their business so fast. What's wrong with me? Why am I not getting this thing? Why am I not getting what I wanted? And then we step back and we can question our worth and be like, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this thing. And we feel like we failed in many different ways. But what if we took all of that, took all of the things that happened, and we just decided to shift our perspective just a little bit? And just change our perspective just a tiny bit and see what happens. What if we looked at the situation from a different angle? That's really what I try to do with as many things as I possibly can. I have a perspective on life, and sometimes my perspective makes me happy, and sometimes my perspective makes me pissed off, depending on the circumstance, right? But when I notice that I don't feel good based off of my perspective, I try to see if there's a way that I can change my perspective. And so the example I always give people is, if this is your perspective, and then you've found exactly what your perspective is. And I said to you, okay, imagine that you're on the debate team. And now you have to debate the opposite side, the opposite perspective. What would that be? So like, for instance, oh, my dad was this way when I was a child and I'm so screwed up because of that. Okay, cool. Now I want you to debate, instead of why you're so screwed up for it, I want you to debate on why that was perfect. And now you've got to see it from a different perspective. Most of the times when I coach people, all I'm listening to is their bullshit, and I'm just trying to help them see a different perspective because they're going through so much pain and struggle and turmoil based off of only their perspective of circumstances that are currently happening and that were happening in the past. So what if we were able to see life's decision to not give us what we want as something that happened for us, as an act of kindness rather than a punishment or some sort of setback? Because there's many reasons why not getting what you want can actually be a really good thing. Sometimes life may be protecting us from a really bad situation. So, for example, maybe you had a relationship, like I can think of a relationship right now off the top of my head, right? An ex-girlfriend that I had. And when we broke up and I found out all of these different things, I was so hurt by it. I was so frustrated by it. That was, how many years ago? Like 18 years ago at this point, 15 years ago, something like that. Oh my God. I am so happy that it didn't work out. But 16 years ago when it was happening, I was so frustrated. I was like, why is this not working out? Right? So it may be that the universe is protecting us from that person, but we don't know about it until we, fast forward years and years down the road. So if maybe, for instance, you really want a job and you really, really, really want that job, and then you end up not getting it and you're really mad and you feel bad about yourself and you think, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified enough. And then 6 months later, that job, that company goes out of business and you're like, oh my God, thank God I didn't get that job, right? You've had that happen before, something along those lines, right? Or you really want to get into a relationship with someone, or you really want to be with somebody that you've been with before. And then you break up and then you can't stop thinking about them. And then you realize, they get married, and then 2 years later they get divorced because they cheated on their spouse or whatever it is. And we're like, oh my God, good thing I didn't stay with her. We can always see when we look back, oh yeah, man, that's really good. I see. Thank God for making that go downhill quickly. So it may be that we have our wants and expectations, but there's a greater plan that's happening behind the scenes. Once again, maybe you believe this, maybe you don't, but just go along on this journey with me. Life may have a greater plan in store for you. You might have your sights set on a particular goal or achievement or amount of money that you want to make or a job that you want to get. And then you find out that, another opportunity presents itself and you end up going that way and ends up being way more rewarding, way more fulfilling for you. In these cases, not getting what you want was actually a gift. Like me thinking back to my ex-girlfriend, not getting what I wanted, which was to be able for us to work out, was a huge gift. I'm sure you've got that. If you look back, you can actually see many circumstances that were really hard for you to go through. But thank God it happened exactly the way that it happened, right? So you've got to start to see that. So I want you to think of one perspective as I'm talking to you. What is one perspective? What is one thing that happened to you where you were really struggling as it was going through you? You were going through it, but it might have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was. And now that you fast forward to today, you go, oh my God, I'm so glad that it didn't happen the way that I wanted it to. You can see that, right? So if that's the case, the next time you have something really hard happen to you, can you remind yourself that maybe the same thing is happening? Maybe you're getting pushed into the right direction. Maybe there's something better for you. Maybe there is someone that's better for you. Right? It can be a really great chance for us to find a different perspective, and it can be a great chance for us to build more awareness in ourselves. Sometimes it's just a matter of timing. If you're like, I want my business to be at $1 million a year and you're at $100,000 a year, maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe you're not good enough yet. Maybe you need to get better. Maybe you need to get more mature. Maybe your skill set is not there and you need to work on your skill set. I always tell people that if you don't have what you want yet, just be better. Not in a bad way, just be better. How do I need to improve? What do I need to improve within myself in order to get better? What is it? I had and really what it comes down to is when you notice that, usually it's a knowledge gap. There's something that you need to learn to get better and to improve at. And that's really something that to think about is like, if I'm not where I want to be, what do I need to learn? I had a sales rep. I was telling this to a group that I coach called Mindset Mentor University earlier this week. And one of my sales reps, he was brand new about 5 months ago. And he was brand new as a sales rep. We hired him on, trusted in him. And about 3 weeks in, he sends me a voice message. He's like, hey man, like I'm really struggling. I'm not getting the results that I want. I don't know what to do. I feel bad about myself. I feel bad about my results. I said, be a sponge, learn more. When you realize that you aren't where you want to be, ask yourself, what do I need to learn? Fast forward 5 months, he literally just finished last month, number 1, right? Because he just became a sponge and learned and learned and learned. And so there might be like, you're not where you want to be yet, because the universe is saying, hey, you need to learn more. You need to be better. You need to get better. You need to get more knowledge into your head. You need to get more experience. You need to get more skills. You need to mature more. That might be what the case is. It's forcing you to grow. You know, it's not always easy to see a silver lining when you're disappointed, when you're let down. It's natural to feel sad or frustrated when things don't, go up to the way that you want it to be and your hopes and dreams and desires are not coming true. But it's really important to make sure that you know that your desires and your goals are just your expectation the way that you think that it should be. And if you fast forward into the future, it will all make sense. If you were in the future, if you were 10 years from today, all of it would make sense. You would go, you know what? I'm seeing why I'm not getting what I want because I need to get better. I need to learn more. I need to get more skill set. I need to improve myself. I don't need to talk shit to myself about how I'm not good enough. What I need to do is make myself good enough. That's the key to it. And so, like I said, if you go back and you think of one experience in your life that you've had, and you think back to a time when you really wanted something, you didn't get it. How did it turn out? Did you eventually realize, from this perspective, from this 5-10 years down the road, can you see that it worked out for the best? If you can see that, it'll help you start to cultivate trust in life's plan for you and it working out. Now, I'm not just saying just sit at home and just, hope for the best. I'm saying you got to learn. You got to get better. You've got to improve your skill set. You've got to put some work in. You've got to take some action. But stay open to new possibilities. Just because one door closed doesn't mean that all doors are closed. Keep an open mind a little bit. Be a little bit more receptive. Look for new opportunities that might pop up. You never know what might be coming down the line for you. And really, when you start to think about it, you start to see yourself in struggles, and you say to yourself, "What am I supposed to learn from this?" I trust. I gave this example to a group I was coaching. I think it was this week as well. And I was saying this example because I think it's really important. So for me, I really do trust. And when you worry a lot, worry is a lack of trust. I just trust that whatever happens is supposed to happen, even if it's not what I want, which is usually the way that it works out, right? And so, for instance, 2 years ago, we had 2 dogs. One of them was Toby, the other one was Bear. Toby passed away 2 years ago. And Toby, we had been going to the same doctor in Austin for years and years and years, and he knew Toby really well. And when Toby passed away, we took his body and to the doctor, and the doctor was in charge of, get him cremated and all that stuff. About 4 days after Toby passed away, we took Bear, our puppy at the time, in to get fixed. And he had to come in, the doctor had to come in and have that conversation with us of hey, there is a risk. He knew that Toby had just passed away, but he was 4 days later, he's like, hey, there's a risk. I just want you guys to know that. And he had to have that doctor conversation. When you put a dog under, there's always risk. And I was like, yeah, I know. And so we drop him off. He goes and gets fixed and everything like that. Don't hear back from the doctor for 7 hours, right? Drop him off in the morning. And I can feel myself start to worry. I can feel the worrying. And I had to take a step back and I had to really question myself, do you trust that everything works exactly the way that's supposed to? And I was like, yes. And if something happens to Bear, do you trust that there's something that you're supposed to learn that is exactly as it's supposed to happen? I was like, yes, I do trust that if something happens, because I'm getting all the lessons from Toby's death, there's other lessons for me if something happens to Bear. But I just really don't want to learn a fucking lesson today. That was my response to it. But I do trust. And what made me stop worrying was the trust that exactly what's supposed to happen is exactly what's going to happen. If you worry too much, worry is a lack of trust. Can you find more ways to trust in the flow of the universe that you are in? Just learn to trust. Let go a little bit more and see how it happens. Remember that life has a plan that you can't freaking comprehend. You can't always see it, and most of the time you can't see it at all until you look backwards. And you have to trust that everything that happens to you happens for a reason. And maybe you're just being guided towards something that's better for you. When you don't get what you want, maybe there's something that's actually better for you that's coming down the line. It's always happening for you. It's never happening to you. And whenever something doesn't happen the way that you want to, take a step back and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I improve? It's important to remember that what you not getting what you want, it's not a punishment or a reflection of your worth, or you're not good enough and that's why you didn't get it. It's simply just part of the ebb and flow of life. Life ebbs, life flow, like it's ebb and flow. It's like sometimes it's really good, sometimes really bad. When it's really bad, it won't be really bad forever. When it's really good, it won't be really good forever. But really, life might just be doing you a favor by not giving you what you wanted, even though it almost never feels like it in the moment. So next time you get really frustrated, you get disappointed, try to take a step back. Try to see a bigger picture. Try to debate from a different perspective, like I said. Maybe this is all working out in your favor. Maybe you are actually being guided towards something better at all moments in time, which means sometimes you're not going to get exactly what you want. What is meant for you will never pass you by. So if you are supposed to have it, you will have it. If you were supposed to be there, you'd be there. If that relationship that you're continuing to think about was supposed to succeed, it would have succeeded. So you've got to start to think about that. Maybe what I should start doing is stop white knuckling my freaking life and just trust a little bit more, because it's all going to work out. I promise you that. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please do me a massive favor. Please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. We don't have a huge company with millions of dollars in advertising that puts this podcast out there. It only grows through grassroots, which means it only grows when you guys enjoy an episode and you share it with people that you love. So if you would do that, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about how to build your confidence and trust yourself more. Let's dive in. I decided to do this episode because I was running a Zoom call yesterday for a weekly group coaching that I do called Mindset Mentor University. And somebody asked me the question, how do I believe in myself so that I can start taking more action? And I was like, okay, well, what do you think is behind all of this? And she's like, well, I think the main problem is I lie to myself. And I was like, okay, tell me more. Like, what do you mean by you lie to yourself? She's like, well, I think my main problem is I tell myself I'm going to go to the gym and I don't. And I'm telling myself I'm going to do this thing and I don't. And I was like, okay, so basically procrastination? She's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into it. And as we dove deeper into it, I lied to myself turned into I don't trust myself was actually the core that was behind it. And then I said, okay, what is the opposite of not trusting yourself? And she paused for a minute and she said, I guess it would be having confidence. And I said, okay, so do you feel like confidence is the main thing that you want? Like if you had more confidence, that it would help you so that you would trust yourself more and then therefore you wouldn't lie to yourself? And she's like, absolutely. And I said, okay, give me some examples of how you don't really necessarily trust yourself more and as much as you'd like to. And she said, you know what, like going to the gym. And I said, okay, if you said, I'm going to go to the gym 10 times, how many times did you go to the gym? She's like, maybe 2 or 3. And I said, okay, cool. Now, when you don't go to the gym, when you say you're going to go to the gym and you don't go to the gym, what do you end up saying to yourself? And she's like, stuff like, what the hell are you doing? You're worthless. Why are you doing this? I can't trust you. You're lying to yourself. And so she has this negative story and words that she's saying to herself when she doesn't go to the gym. I said, okay, cool. Is there a chance that even when you do go to the gym, you're still negative to yourself? Like, what are you saying? And she's like, well, yeah, that's true. Like, even when I do go to the gym, I'm still saying like, you're not good enough. You're not working hard enough. You said you were going to go to the gym yesterday and you didn't go. You still don't look good, et cetera, like all of this stuff, right? And I said, okay, so if you don't go to the gym, you're hard on yourself. And if you do go to the gym, you're still hard on yourself. And she's like, yes. And I was like, okay. And I'm curious, if you listen to this podcast, do you do that to yourself sometimes? Do you kind of do that where you're hard on yourself when you don't do what you want, you procrastinate and you don't take the action that you want to, but then you're also hard on yourself when you do take the action that you want to and say, oh, it's not enough. You're not far along enough. You should be further ahead in life. Do you do that? Okay. Well, the example that I gave is my little dog, Bear, who's 10 pounds, was next to me. I picked him up on the Zoom call and I said, let's say, and I would never do this to him, but let's just give you an example, right? Let's say that Bear walks into a room and I smack him on the nose. And then later on, he tries to walk into the same room and I smack him on the nose. And then later on, he tries to walk in the room and I smack him in the nose. Eventually, what's going to happen? And everybody on the call said he's going to avoid walking into the room. I said, is it possible that he would associate the room with getting smacked on the nose? Everyone's like, yes, absolutely. I said, okay. Now, if we take Bear walking into the room as you walking into the gym, you have done the exact same thing to yourself. When you don't go into the gym, you smack yourself in the nose. When you do go into the gym, you still smack yourself in the nose. And so you have subconsciously associated the gym with mentally beating yourself up, whether you do it or not. And so if you look at it and just say, is my brain saying this is a bad thing or this is a good thing? Your brain is saying, gym, bad thing. When you don't go, you beat yourself up. And when you do go, you beat yourself up. And so what do we have to do for us to finally fucking believe in ourselves? Well, I got an idea. How about we start talking differently to ourselves? How about we're better to ourselves? How about we actually be our best friend? You have to learn to celebrate yourself. There's an entire chapter of my book. The last chapter, and I'll actually tell you it's my favorite chapter, is chapter 12 in my book of Level Up, is called the dopamine reward system, where I teach exactly how to build what's called a dopamine reward system, which is how to get your brain to associate pleasure with doing the things that you didn't want to do that are going to get you further along in life. And so I said, I'll give you an example. If every time Bear came to that same room, I gave him a treat, and then he came to the room later and I gave him a treat, and he came to the room later and I gave him a treat, his brain would subconsciously associate that room with treats instead of that room with getting hit in the nose. So our brain is going to subconsciously associate good or bad to anything. And so then you start asking yourself, well then, and she had asked a question like, how do I start believing in myself to take action then? Like, I know I want to go to the gym. Okay, it makes sense that I should start talking to myself better. But how do I believe in myself so that I can start taking action? And here's the deal. When you figure that one out, just go ahead and let me know too. Because who said that you have to believe in yourself to take any action? Who said that belief was a prerequisite to action? It isn't. The beautiful thing about taking action is you don't have to believe in yourself at all. Not even a tiny bit. You just have to do it anyways. Like if you're a salesperson, you don't have to believe that someone is going to buy from you. All you have to do is just make enough phone calls, you read the script, and eventually somebody's going to buy from you. Right? Now, I understand, if you have more conviction, if you're a better salesperson, you're going to make more sales. But eventually, you just have to realize that if you just take the action, the results are going to come. That's how life works. If you just take the action, the results are going to come. And when you get those results, guess what happens? You actually get more confidence in yourself. So you don't have to believe anybody's going to buy. You just have to pick up the phone, hit those 10 numbers, and talk to whoever answers the phone. None of that requires belief. None of that requires you brainwashing yourself into believing in yourself. Now, does belief help? Yeah, absolutely it helps. Is it required? No. Like I'm not going to say don't do affirmations. You definitely should. You definitely should speak better to yourself. I'm not saying don't speak positively yourself. Believe me, it helps. But what I'm saying is none of that is required for you to take action. And in order for you to start to rewire yourself and start to rewire your thoughts, it requires you to, number one, pay attention to your thoughts. And number two, start paying attention to your actions. Are your actions going to get you the results that you want or not? And so I want you to understand that. Do you know what helps you build belief in yourself more than anything else? Doing what you don't want to do. So whether you succeed or whether you don't succeed, showing up for yourself And knowing you showed up for yourself and celebrating yourself for showing up for yourself builds trust in yourself. Like if you don't want to go to the gym and you go to the gym anyways, and you say, I'm proud of you for showing up and going to the gym, that starts to slowly build more confidence in yourself, more trust in yourself. Because that's all ultimately confidence is trust in yourself. So start asking yourself, where have I been breaking trust with myself? Now, whether you get the results that you want to or not, you can still build confidence by doing the thing that you didn't want to do. Now, when you start getting results and you celebrate yourself for also getting those results, you're building yourself even more confidence. If you get results better than you have achieved before in the past, you will start believing more in yourself. And if you do it over and over and over and over again, your belief continues to raise. So then you start to ask yourself, how do you get results? You take action in the direction that you're trying to go. It's very simple. It's like life is not hard. We make it to be so complex, and it's really not that hard. You take action in the direction that you're trying to go. You know, like let's say you want to lose weight. You don't have to believe in yourself to show up at the gym. You don't. You don't have to believe that you will lose weight to do an intense workout. You don't have to believe that you will lose weight in order to cut out junk food from your life. You don't have to believe in yourself and believe that you will lose weight in order to consume more water and less sodas. You don't have to believe you will lose weight in order to get more rest. You don't have to believe you will lose weight to do any of those things. So belief is not a prerequisite. What do you have to do? You just have to take action in the direction that you're trying to go. And guess what? If you do all of those things and you start to see yourself show up and do the things you didn't want to do, you're going to start to build more trust in yourself because you're showing up for yourself. And if you also do all of those things and you do them all and you start getting results, you start seeing 5 pounds come off. And you do it over and over and over and over and over again, you see 10 pounds come off. You're eventually going to jump on a scale and you're going to see a lower weight in a couple weeks. And when you see that lower weight, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that maybe you're going to start believing yourself a little bit more? Absolutely. And so belief is not a prerequisite to taking action. But how do you start to build trust in yourself? How do you start to believe in yourself more? Well, number one is doing the things that you don't want to do, but you know are good for you, and then celebrating yourself for showing up, regardless of the results. And then eventually, the results will be coming in. And when the results come in, you celebrate yourself for that. And it's like stacking confidence blocks over and over and over again. That's the belief that everyone just wants to brainwash into themselves. But guess what? You can't just sit there and meditate and just from meditation believe it, you get belief in yourself. If you are a salesperson and you know that X amount of calls turns into X amount of people that pick up and X amount of people will buy, that means that you just need to make, whatever it is, 50 calls a day, every day, Monday through Friday for the entire year, and you're going to make $100,000. You can figure that out. You can figure out based off your numbers. You don't have to believe in yourself to pick up the phone and make those calls. You don't have to believe anybody's going to buy to make those calls. You don't have to believe anyone's going to pick up in order to make those calls. And you don't have to make $100,000 for you to believe in yourself or for you to read a script. You don't have to believe in yourself in order to overcome objections. It's going to automatically come eventually if you know your sales numbers. You don't have to believe in yourself in order to do anything other than the action that is in the direction that you're trying to go towards. If your math is right, and as long as you take action and you make those 50 calls a day or whatever it might be, and you talk to everyone that answers and you overcome objections and you get sales and you get no sales, you will make the $100,000 that you wanted to at the beginning of the year, even if you didn't believe in yourself. All you had to do was take the action to show up when you didn't want to show up. Like, think about that for a second. When you subconsciously see yourself show up and do something that you didn't want to do, that builds trust. You go, you know what? I can trust this person. Because ultimately, when we have trust in somebody else, what is that trust really? That person's going to show up for me. If you don't have trust in yourself, it's because you're going, that person's not going to show up for me. I'm not going to show up for me. And when you take action and when you get results, every time you get the results, you start to believe in yourself more. And when you look at yourself in the mirror and you visually start to see the weight coming off, do you think you're going to just get a tiny bit more belief in yourself? And week after week, when you look better and you feel better and the scale shows a lower number every single week, do you think you're going to believe in yourself a little bit more? Of course. And when you make your sales calls and you get your first sale, do you think you're going to believe in yourself a little bit more? In the second sale, in the third sale, in the 40th sale, do you think you're going to believe in yourself a little bit more? Do you think you're going to believe in yourself more at the 40th sale than you did before your first sale? Absolutely. So what's the key takeaway here? You don't have to believe in yourself in order to take action. You don't have to believe in yourself in order to start to do the thing that you need to do. You just have to take the right action. You have to celebrate yourself for taking the right action. And then when the results come, you have to celebrate yourself from that as well. The results will come. That is how it works. You just have to make sure you're heading in the right direction. And one day you will wake up. You'll look in the mirror and you'll realize, oh my God, I'm so much more confident in myself. Not because you read a book, not because you journaled about it, not because you meditated about it, not because you brainwashed yourself into it. It's because you took action, you did the things that you didn't want to do that were going to help you either way, you got the results, and you got to become more confident by doing it. A confident person is not born confident. A confident person is built brick by brick by brick, and those bricks are just a wall that they've built over the course of their life. So when you see someone that's confident, you're like, man, I wish I was confident. Work, put something together. That's how they got there. I'm not saying cocky, I'm saying confident, which is the actual belief in yourself, the trust in yourself that you will show up when you need to show up. So if you want to believe in yourself, get your ass up, take some action. Now, when you take action and you add positive self-talk on top of it, now you're talking about a superhuman. So when we go back to what I was talking about with the original person that I was talking to in Mindset Mentor University about this, where she would go to the gym and she would still talk shit to herself. No, when you go to the gym, you celebrate yourself. Not when you get done with the workout, not when you lose the 30 pounds. You celebrate yourself literally at the end. First off, you celebrate yourself for walking in. Because when you celebrate yourself, hell yeah, Rob. You're here. You didn't want to be here. I'm proud of you for walking in the door. You get a little bit of dopamine, right? Dopamine reward system. Okay, you're starting to build this little dopamine reward system. When you get done with your first set, hell yeah, I'm so proud of you for doing this. You're doing such a great job. Get done with your second set, your third, your fourth, your fifth. Every single set you celebrate yourself. What ends up happening? You start to feel way better about yourself. You start to get dopamine at the end of every single set. It's the same way of giving that dog a treat as soon as he walks in the door. You're going to want to keep coming back to the gym. You're going to kind of a little bit subconsciously be like, you know what? I'm starting to enjoy the gym after a month or 2 months or 3 months. That is a dopamine reward system. It is a reward system is what it is. And it might sound crazy. And I understand it sounds crazy to be like, oh, just celebrating myself is going to get me there. Yes, 100%. There's other ways to do it. I write about it in my book and all that. But really what it comes down to is take action and start being your number one fan. Stop being such an asshole to yourself. There's so many people, I just talk to so many people on Zoom and all these calls I do and different stuff. And it's just so many people are just so mean to themselves. Like, just stop being so mean. Like, if there's anybody in this world that you need to be good to, that you need to be nice to, that you need to speak well to, it's yourself. Because the better that you are, the better that you're going to make everyone else around you. And so ultimately it comes down to, if you want to build belief in yourself, if you want to build trust in yourself, if you want to build confidence in yourself, change the way that you speak to yourself and take the actions that you need to get the life that you want. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way this podcast grows is from you guys actually organically sharing it. So I greatly appreciate it every single time I see hundreds of you guys sharing this podcast on your Instagram stories, because people who follow you might see this podcast and go, you know what? I really need that. I really need to build more confidence in myself. Hopefully they listen to it. Hopefully they change their lives as well. And with that, I'm going to leave it the same way I leave every single episode. Make it your mission, make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. I want you to understand that there is no such thing as your perception being full 100% reality. If you look at it, subjective perception is subjective reality, not perception is reality. People that say like, oh, perception is reality. No. Subjective perception is subjective reality. Your perception is not absolute reality. In fact, your perception usually isn't reality at all, because like I said, your brain filters and distorts everything that comes in through your five senses. So all of these billions and millions of bits of information come in through your five senses, and then your brain has to make some sort of sense of it. It has to put things into boxes, in labels, and hopefully try to make as many things as possible fit into these boxes. And so what it does is it filters everything that goes through your senses, through conditionings, through the way you were raised, through millions and millions of experiences that you've had in your life. These little distortions in psychology are actually called cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are biased ways of thinking that reinforce thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. They're really common in many mental health conditions, such as depression, such as anxiety, but we all have them. They're not just in anxiety and depression. We all have them, even if you don't have any sort of mental health diagnosis at all. Understanding your cognitive distortions is one of the most critical steps in improving your mental health and also creating better self-awareness and overall a better life. Well, let's talk a little bit more about them real quick so I can really talk about how to fix them. What are cognitive distortions? Cognitive distortions are irrational, biased thoughts that perpetuate negative thinking patterns that you have. If you think, oh, the world's out to get me, you're going to see all of the ways in which the world is out to get you, or that, all men are cheaters. You're going to see all of the ways that men are cheaters, or this type of person is bad. You're going to see all the ways where that type of person is bad. They're basically errors in your thinking that distort your perception of reality. These distortions are basically automatic. They're unconscious most of the time. Usually if, it's a person who doesn't work on themselves and they're not very self-aware, they just don't even notice them in the first place because they're so deeply ingrained, they often occur without us even being aware of them. They go unnoticed unless you pay more attention. And that's why I always say this, and this is really what they say in cognitive behavioral therapy, is to question the validity of your thoughts. When you have thoughts that are getting in the way of the life that you want to create, you've got to question to see, is this actually valid? And that's where questioning the validity of your thoughts comes from, is because cognitive distortions will come in, change reality in front of you. You think that it's real reality, and then you've got to go, hold on, is this valid or is this just me? And so I'm going to give you a few different types of really, really common cognitive distortions. I think I got like 6 of them for you, okay? Number 1 is one that's called all or nothing thinking. This is also known as black or white thinking. And this distortion tends to see things in very absolute terms. For example, if I'm not perfect, I'm a total failure. That's all or nothing thinking. Or I didn't get an A on the test, so I must be stupid. I miss a deadline at work, now I'm never going to get a promotion. And maybe you're working on your fitness and you eat bad one meal and say, I'm never going to hit my fitness goals. And so it's like all or nothing. And if you think that way, it tends to derail you when you're trying to get better. If you think, okay, I eat bad one time, maybe you have 17 days of really good fitness and eating really healthy. And then, you have a little bit too much ice cream one night and you're like, I'm never going to hit my fitness goals. And you're focusing on this one moment where you ate a lot of ice cream and you're not even paying attention to the other 17 days where you did really well. And so you just give up. I'm never going to hit my fitness goals. You see how that's a distortion? It's distorting reality in front of you. The second one is overgeneralization. And this involves broad conclusions based off of a single event. It is very similar, not exactly the same thing as all or nothing thinking. So for instance, I failed this test, so I'm going to fail all of my tests. Or I felt awkward at this party, and I'm always awkward in social situations. Or I failed this exam, so I'm going to fail all of my classes. And so what happens is we take one event and we just put a broad stroke over all of the rest of the events that are going to be happening in the future. That's overgeneralization. The third one is called negative mental filter, which is another way of calling it negativity bias is what it is. The distortion involves focusing solely on the negative aspects of a situation and then just ignoring all of the positive. So for an example, I made a mistake on my presentation, so the whole presentation was a disaster. Or, you get a work review and it says, great job here, great job here, great job here. this needs improvement. Great job here. Great job here. And then all of your focus goes to needs the improvement. Like you don't pay attention to any of the great jobs. The one thing that you focus on is needs the improvement. Like I remember when I first started putting content out online about 9 years ago, I remember I had one video that did really well and it was on Facebook and I had like 1,000 positive comments and there was one negative comment. And like 2 hours later, I'm walking around my house and I'm ruminating and thinking about that one negative comment. I'm not paying attention to any of the 1,000 positive ones. I'm focusing on just the one negative one. You know, it's like you can maybe you go out to a party, you have a great time at a party. And I don't know if you've ever done this. I've done this many times. You say one thing a little bit weird, or you say something that might be just a little bit different. You don't get the reaction that you want to. And you go home and you dwell that one thing so negatively and you think, oh my God, everyone must think that I'm so awkward. I hope they didn't think that what I said meant X, Y, Z. And so you're focusing on just that one thing. And so that's the negative mental filter. The fourth one, which is very common, is discounting the positive. People do this a lot. I see it all of the time with people, is what you're basically doing is you're dismissing the positive experiences by insisting that they don't count. And the reason why is because they don't really line up with your filter of yourself and what you think of yourself. So you want to dismiss them. So an example would this be like, I only did well on the assignment because it was easy. You know, I'm sure everybody did well on it. You know, you think you're going to fail something, you get an A. And you're like, well, yeah, I only did that. I only got an A because it was easy. Not because I'm smart, not because I did well. I'm sure everybody else did well. Or, you know, maybe you will go back to the presentation at work. You do a presentation at work and everyone's like, oh, great job, great job. And you're like, well, they only said great job because they feel bad for me. This one happens all the time. I see this one more common than any of the other ones. You get a compliment and you're like, oh, they're just being nice. They don't think I actually look good. Like so many people, it's really, really hard for them to take compliments from other people because it doesn't line up with what they actually think of themselves. And so they're like, oh, no, they're just being nice. They don't actually think I look good. And so if you have trouble taking compliments, discounting the positive could be a cognitive distortion that you might have. The fifth one is labeling, and it involves attaching a negative label to yourself or even to other people as well. So for example, let's say you mess something up and so you're like, I'm such an idiot. Or you fail a math test and you say, I'm terrible at math. Or you screw something up at work and you're like, I'm terrible at my job. Or once again, you say something weird at a party and you're like, oh, I'm just so awkward. Or you lose your temper one day after having a hard day in front of your children. You're like, I'm a terrible parent. Or you sleep in one morning and you're like, I'm just lazy. What you're doing is you're labeling yourself and attaching an identity to a behavior. So, you know, the behavior was you mess something up. I'm an idiot. That's just a behavior, right? If you screw something up at work, that's just a behavior. I'm terrible at my job. And so what you're doing is you're making a behavior and turning it into an actual label and identity for yourself, which is very dangerous to do. So that's the fifth one. And then the sixth one, which is very common as well, is catastrophizing. So this cognitive distortion is where a person expects the worst possible outcome in almost every single situation. So they just imagine the worst that could happen no matter what. And it leads to, you know, increased anxiety, stress, and like a sense of helplessness because you really can't control the majority of stuff that happens in your life. And so, you know, like let's say you make a small mistake at work and you think, oh, well, I messed up this project, I'm going to get fired. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But what happens is a tiny little thing turns into this big explosion, catastrophizing. So you're making a catastrophe out of something that's small. No, you just messed up a work project. Doesn't mean you're going to get fired. Or, you know, going back to say something awkward at a party, it's like everyone must think that I'm an idiot. They never want to talk to me again, right? That's catastrophizing. Maybe, you know, you're in a relationship with someone and your partner doesn't reply to your text message for a few hours. And you're like, they must be angry with me. They want to break up, right? That's what catastrophizing looks like versus just looking at the reality of being like, reality is they haven't texted back in a few hours. They're out with their friends. Maybe they're having fun. Maybe this phone died, maybe whatever. But you're like catastrophizing a small event. And that's how you can see reality gets distorted. And so why do we have cognitive distortions? That's really what pops into my head. Why do we have these then? It comes down to something that's actually called secondary gains. And so it's actually doing something for us, believe it or not, even if we don't know that it is. Really what it is more than anything else is it is a defense mechanism in some way. And it can keep us in our comfort zone so that we feel safe. That would be the secondary gain that we get out of it. It can make us not want to get into another relationship so that we don't get hurt. That's the secondary gain. There's always some sort of secondary gain that comes from these defense mechanisms. It's protecting you in some sort of way. And maybe, yeah, that can be good sometimes. But the problem is, in the long run, it means us not having the life that we truly want. And it can make you feel safe or right or whatever it is in the short run. But in the long run, they can make you miserable unless you start to actually see reality for what it is. So in the short run, what I'm saying is it's the defense mechanism, right? In the long run, it becomes part of your personality and it can throw your life off course. It can cause depression. It could cause anxiety, or it could just be something as simple as just not reaching your potential because, short-term avoidance turns into long-term suffering. Whenever you're avoiding something that you really want, and you're avoiding the feelings or the emotions or whatever it is, it turns into long-term suffering. How do you get past these cognitive distortions? So maybe you're at the point where you're noticing, oh, you know what? That one cognitive distortion that he just said really hits home for me. Well, how do I get past that thing? The first thing is awareness. You need to become aware of yourself. You need to start becoming more aware of your thinking. And so when it pops up, write it down. Get really clear on okay, I just did this thing. Is that absolute reality? Probably not. Okay, so what happened? I'm going to write it down. I'm going to get really clear on what actually happened in reality and how I distorted reality and start thinking about that, right? So that's the first thing. Become very aware of it, and writing it down helps you get more clear because you have to put it on paper. Second thing is to ask yourself what short-term benefit of thinking that thought would be. And so find the secondary benefit. Is it defending you from something? Is it protecting you from feeling a certain way? Is it trying to make me feel safe? Is it me trying to be right? I'm always bad at math, right? Or is it, trying to reinforce an identity or a label that you already have of yourself? Oh, they're just being nice. They're giving me a compliment because they actually think I look terrible and they want to make me feel good, right? That's reinforcing an identity of, oh, I'm ugly or I'm unlovable or I don't look good or I can't lose weight or whatever it might be. Remember, short-term safety, long-term consequence. And so then you got to ask yourself, what are the long-term consequences of me believing this thought that I'm believing? So that's the second thing. Number 3 is to learn to challenge the distorted thinking. So you look at it, and I do this with people all the time when I do one-on-one coaching sessions and, like Mindset University and stuff like that, where I run, weekly coaching sessions and I work with people live, and I'll notice someone has a cognitive distortion. And I'll be like, is what you said absolutely true? And they're like, well, it's true. And I'm like, no. Is it absolutely true that you're terrible at math? Is it absolutely true that you're unlovable? Is it absolutely true that you screw every single thing up in your entire life? And what happens is most people, it's not true. It's true to them, but it's not objectively true in reality. So I say, what would a friend say? Would they believe the exact same thing that you believe, or would they have a different perspective? So you do the exact same thing for yourself. Is this absolutely true? This thing that I'm believing, is it absolutely true? Or is it just true to me, but not objectively true? If I brought one of my friends in here, what would they say? Would they believe the exact same thing that I'm saying? Or would maybe they have a different perspective? And so then you've got to ask yourself, so that's step number 3. Number 4 is you've got to do opposite thinking, which is what's the exact opposite of what I'm thinking? And how would my life be different if I believed this thing instead? So if someone says, oh, I look really good, and it's like, well, I don't think that I look good. I think that I look terrible. I think that I look ugly. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? Well, that I actually do look good. Okay, well, how would my life be different if I did believe this instead? And so you start testing the boundaries, playing a little bit of devil's advocate with opposite thinking. And then what you do, the last part of it, number 5, is to replace the thought with the thought that you'd prefer. So if you're saying, okay, does this thinking, if I were to keep it for the rest of my life, would it help me get to where I want to go in life? This cognitive distortion? Probably not. Just going to give you a little I bet you it's probably not going to help you out. I'll put it that way. Okay. And so you said that, you said, okay, well, if I were to be able to have a magic wand and to just replace this thought with a thought that would help me out, what would it be? And that's what I'm going to do. When I start noticing the cognitive distortion pop up, I'm going to place a new thought. I'm going to place a new thought. I'm going to place a new thought. And you do this over and over and over again. You start realizing, oh my God, like I'm lying to myself all the time. I'm distorting reality all the time to make me feel safe, to keep me small, to keep me in my comfort zone, to reinforce what I already believe about myself or my identity or the world. And so you've got to start challenging yourself, start thinking differently. You realize that you're distorting reality hundreds of times a day. And the more that you start realizing that your perception is not reality, you start realizing, oh my God, like I can kind of let go of some things. Realize that the way I see the world is not absolutely how reality is. And if that's the case, maybe I can change the way that I'm distorting it. I would rather distort reality for my benefit versus my demise. And so if we're distorting it, let's try to distort it for our benefit more than anything else. And if you do that, your life will be better and you'll start to actually create the thoughts and the beliefs and the actions that you need to create the life that you want. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. Based off of what you've been watching recently, YouTube thinks that you should watch this video right here. Perfectly crafted for you. That's why they're giving it to you. And if you want to make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any more videos, click that link right there.